Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name's John Hastings. I'm with my co-host, Mr. James Silo, and special guest, founder of FemTech India, Navneet Kaur. How are you, Navneet?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Great to have you on. So, just to kick us off, Navneet, give us a little bit of background into yourself and how you started in the femtech space and how you founded FemTech India.
Sure. I was born and raised in North India. I come from Punjabi community, so in our community, mostly women, our education was like number one priority for me because my family, all the women were super educated. They were independent and working. My dad's side, my mom's side of family, women were mostly homemakers. So I literally saw two sides of the world of where women having freedom and where women were not having freedom. So, and of course my dad also always believed in education. So I was privileged enough to go to good school. I got my graduation. I was 17 and a half when I left India because I literally wanted to explore different kind of world apart from India because I had different vision. And it was really, really important for me that I wanted to do that. So I went to Griffith University, did my graduation from there. Then I came back to India. Then I was at Stanford. And I think when I was in my college days, I was pretty sure that I want to be an entrepreneur. So it was very clear for me. I didn't want to work for anybody. I remember pitching my first idea when I was in my college. I was 19 years old, and I actually booked a meeting with one of the director of the company without even having any idea about business. And this guy was so kind enough to, tell me like how the business model works. It was a franchisee model, and I wanted to bring that to India. So I think it was very clear that yes, a lot of things around my growing up, my childhood, of course. As I said, the community I come from, that where education is priority, but then women get married and then they don't have any aspiration to do something. So for me, like I was like I wanted to create different kind of life for me. I'm so grateful. My parents are so nice. My dad has been the biggest supporter in my life that I wouldn't have been able to do whatever I'm doing today. He always encouraged me. So I'm super grateful that, after my graduation and masters, I was deciding either I want to be in India or US. So I decided that I want to be in India because when I was looking at data points and emerging markets and stats, and India was, of course, showing as a growing economy. Plus, I also was very sure that if I do something in India, I would stand out. If I do something in Western countries, you know, I'm just literally competing with so many people. So I think, of course, that I wanted to come back and do something for our community for sure. Plus, also contribute to something and bring some change in Indian ecosystem. And before I started FemTech India, I joined my family business. Very interesting because I had no experience working for anyone. So nobody would give me money to start a business. So it was great that I jumped into family business, did that for 5 years in consumer brand space, which taught me so much different narrative about India, that how Indian market really works. The one is when you're building in digital landscape, what is the policy framework, what are the regulations, how do you run bigger teams, and of course the family business was more into high investment, high risk. So we were literally playing a lot of data and numbers. And I think after COVID, of course, I was young, made good money, made really good connections. And, that thought started coming to my mind that what I want to do as a person, like what is mine, what I want to create. And I think, of course, in COVID, I really started do my research and understanding of where I want to contribute my next 5-10 years, what is for me. And that's where I started to exit my family business operations, pulled my own money and started my own company, FemTech India, without even having any background in health or tech. I think I'm someone, I was really, really passionate, of course, but I was also very clear, to be honest. I thought I'm going to give myself like, you know, 1 year or two few years to see if this work out. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to family business again, because I didn't want to be so attached to the idea of if something is not working out. So I think it was, of course, like a lot of pressure for me that I wanted to prove myself. And we actually worked, even we scaled actually really really fast, because I put myself in the position that yes, we need to bring in more money. I was also clear that I don't want to put more money, like whatever the money we started the business with, we just wanted to like grow on that and focus on revenue model. So yes, of course. And then while I was doing my research, and there were three key gaps I saw in India in terms of health tech, women's health overall. And as I said, why women's health? Because it goes back to my childhood of that, when I've seen women, women's health was only looked upon pregnancy or childbirth. And I think it goes beyond that. Still so many, like, of course, because of culture barriers. And I'm not just saying in India, like the more and more I talk to women, and I feel it's a global issue that women are forced to have children. Some women just can't even say no. So I think, it's such a broader category of understanding your hormonal health to then going into different phases of life. And that really inspired me to understand my health, and I started sharing with my small group of friends. And then I started going deep into how is this market look like in terms of business wise, and I saw three key gaps. Education and awareness, because still many women just don't understand their own health problems. Second was, of course, research, because whatever the products are actually was built or sold in India was basically like, companies from West, and these products are not tested on Indian women. So we were actually given which is not even tested for us. And of course that women were also not part of clinical trials as well for many years, right? So I think this is a global stats, right? So we wanted to work on a research to understand what are the gaps and opportunities. And third is like resources and help founders from market access, because when I was thinking, I don't come from health tech background, so what do I bring in, how do I run my company? I started putting my strength on paper, that what all I learned from my family business was that, bringing global brands to Indian market, and that was my strength of putting all the narrative. And then of course combining with the research and study of really helping companies into women's health tech space. And we started in 2022. So it was crazy that I was leading 80 team members in my family business, and I came back from going on top to like literally a down, and started working with two interns. And there were so many months that I was questioning myself that am I doing something right, where this is gonna go, because we were building on like blogs, and I'm not even from industry. Even the we had a advisor at early stage, and some of these advisors told me no one's going to take you seriously because you don't have gray hair. I'm just like, I'm not going to sit and wait for my gray hairs to start something, right? So I think it was like I was very clear that what we want to do as the long term goal, plus also like looking at the market and industry insights of how market is evolving. And yeah, that's how FemTech India actually started, and now we have 200 plus companies on board with us all around the world. So it's been great journey building this space.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that
I've
is
got so many questions. I don't even know where to start. But
yeah.
I'm going to go back right to the beginning almost, when you were 17 and leaving home, going to a different country. I mean, were you scared at that point? Were you excited? What were the emotions? Because if you look at all of that whole sort of timeline, that story, it seems like, well, you had very sort of caring parents who were championing you and allowing you to have the freedom to live the life that you wanted to leave, so that not culturally you were being dictated, but that
Right.
you were allowed to leave at 17. I mean, okay, so the first question is, how did that feel at 17? Was it fear, or was it excitement, or a little bit of both?
No, I won't say I had a fear. I was really excited because I was just like, finally, I'm going to explore different kind of world, which I have not seen, of course. My parents were super scared because everyone told my dad, don't send her because she's really young. And of course, there's a culture differences too. So I think I never felt anything scared in my life because I'm someone who like to take risk with excitement and jump on to try things. But I'm also someone who just doesn't get emotionally attached and move on really fast on things. And I was super excited. I think that had just taught me so much about who I am today. Like I literally learned from Australia how to make money, how to value money, and how to live with that money. And I think these things are not taught at home. Your friends, you just live from, like you learn from society. And I think, I was young and I had the early exposure of doing my own things. Like I was just student, and Australia pays you actually so well. And in my first summer, I made a lot of money, and that was just like my first money. I was 19 when I bought my first car with my own money. So it's just like I was managing also and learning how to manage my finance. Got my first credit card. I just really didn't know. The bank guy explained me how do you pay your, installments so you don't get charged for interest. Learning how to build the points when you travel, how to do so. These things were like, I was just like, I would have never learned if I was in India, because you just like, you're so young, and next thing is, yeah, you go to college and parents will never allow you to get your own credit card. So I was just doing things, and that just gave me like so much of exposure of that. It just kind of builds confident more and more things you do. And yeah, only problem I had was of course the accent, because I was Indian. And probably my English was not even so great, and I used to feel scared talking to people. So I think that
Sure.
also kind of like I picked up so quickly, because Australia is different country than any other country in the world, right? So they have their own Aussie slang, and of course I was made fun in college and all that, but I never taken anything personally, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And when it comes to your business at the moment, what are the main products or services that you're offering to, you said about the awareness piece, but to those 200 companies that you're working with?
So I'll break it down very simple way. Like as I said, we working toward three gaps. Education and awareness, of course. Not just in technology, also in overall, because women's health has been such a taboo topic. Even talking about menstruation or period is a big thing. I have seen that when it's so normal, because we grew up in that time. We didn't had chat GTP or access to internet how today's generation have, right? So
Yeah,
even the period ad will come on TV, and they'll be like, oh, change the channel, or like I cannot just tell my father like I'm I have my period. So it's just still stigma, right? I grew up in that environment, of course. Even though my parents are really open minded, but like my mom was telling me this is how you're supposed to be and all that. So uh, period is one thing, but of course overall, more and more you deeper you go into women's health, that even having access to technology, many girls don't know how to use that, right? So um, to fill that gap, of course awareness is super important, that which is also advocacy is the piece that where you have to invest a lot of money. There are a lot of NGOs, organizations do like such a work at ground level,
yeah,
which probably is distributing period pads and all that, which we don't do because we are very technology focused. So basically like empowering more young girls that how they can make the best out of technology, which everyone, India has done the best thing, giving access to technology every single person. If I look back 5 to 10 years back, I can see the drastic change, that everyone has a smartphone, everyone have access to internet, everyone have a basic apps, they know how to use it. So I think it's just that so coming back to the education and awareness piece, that we do, we really started with the newsletter, to be honest. And India
yeah.
is not a market again where people will subscribe or pay for newsletter, because not we are not a subscription based market. And we just
Interesting.
started because we wanted to
It's
bring
interesting.
conversations. Yeah, it's quite interesting, because
Mm.
like you can't think of, yeah, you can make money out of subscription model, because it's not, people just don't see value in it, because I mean there's so much free content you can consume online, right?
Yeah,
And for us, like we were like, yes, when we first started, of course the main focus was on education and awareness part, so was bringing conversations at the forefront, bringing founder stories at the forefront. So we started building this ecosystem of where we started telling people, hey, you can join our ecosystem. So we started spotlighting them. Hey, what is this period tracking app? What is postpartum care? What is mental health? What is PCOS? Like, the women's health conditions are so many, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's how we really started. And then, of course, we combine our podcast also, which again, bringing conversations, founders, investors, like people who are building in this space to bring that narrative that why this space is important. Second is research. I do see that, as I said, like, there are no research specific for Indian women focused, or even for industries really new. So how do you really validate the market, where the data is going? Where else we look at other sectors of fintech, edtech, there's so much of information, people know about it. Femtech is a world that, when we started, actually people were not even understanding. They were like thinking, oh, is it fintech, is it what it is? So
Sure.
it was like a
Yeah.
lot of educating, right? And research is something that way we create a lot of industry specific reports. All the reports are on my LinkedIn. The reason we keep it free resource, because we could easily sell and make money. We don't want to do that, because we want to show the people like what is the Indian market size, or who are the global investors probably want to invest in Indian market, and they can see how the landscape is evolving. Also, validate as a market that yes, this industry matters, and there's a data which is showing that. So that's why we focus so much on creating very industry focused reports that I've done on digital health, women's health, medtech. And I have like one more report coming soon. So we just keep building all these reports in very detailed manner. And the third is, which is of course our revenue model as well, that what we find is that cross-border opportunities and collaborations. As I said, I was lucky enough to work in global markets at very young age. So I was very clear I wanted to build a global business, because it's just like you understand so much of different people narrative. I'm very passionate about, I don't know, understanding different culture and meeting different people. That I just got it from my university campus, because I was living with five six different nationalities, and we were like learning so much from each other. And I think I'm also like very diverse. I blend with people so quickly. And when it was even my family business also, that we were working with mostly in European markets. And I remember I wasn't even part of the board meetings for first 2 years, because they're like, you need to learn first how to negotiate. So I used to sit in the meetings and just like observe, and not talk anything. And I was just like, I want to put my point, and I had to learn so much. So I think also, like, there's a lot of skill set comes into it. And I think I built these building blocks at the beginning of my career, of course. And I was like, I don't want to be at one place. I wanted to show the world that what India can offer. Because India is positioned at, it was positioned in very different narrative earlier. And now, in terms of digital landscape, even in fintech space, we are the first one to launch UPI payment transaction board. The fintech sector has grown so big that so many companies wants to adapt that, right? So if we look at infrastructure is growing, and it's pretty vast as well. And I'm like, why we can't talk about women's health too? So I was first invited by McKinsey in Paris. It was MedFemTech conference, and that's where I first time spoke about how is the Indian market, even talking about reproductive health rights, ecosystem, landscape, opportunities, gaps, especially on women's health. It was just focused on that. And I think that just kind of opened up doors for us, that telling people who are like founders or building in European markets, and they have such a great products and innovative technologies, but their market size is really, really small. And India is
Mm.
like 1.3 billion people. And if you just target 50% of women, it's again such a big market size. And even out of that, you're targeting 20%, you can validate your business model, because when you're building in digital space, you don't have to focus on one country. You can explore different markets. And I think that's how we kind of really kind of figured out and structured, this is what our product is for our company, and of course driving those partnerships and collaborations. I think there's another thing we've noticed, that people are a little hesitant, that how do we trust someone we don't know from India. People had a communication barrier, that they like, hey, we are reaching out to people but they don't understanding. So I think I'm
Yeah.
really good at, like, I always believe in building business at relationships. So for me, all the founders I work with, the people I work with, we have like really deep relation, which goes beyond transactional relationship, of course. And it's also very super professional. So it was like, yes, we have to, if someone's coming to us, we have to do our best to show that what they can really leverage from India. So I think the third, of course, are consulting model or market access model, that where we actually work with global companies. And some of the companies we work with, of course, series A to unicorn status, and unicorn was from London only. The flow period tracking app that we've done, pass it on project for them in India. So it was like entirely led by us. So there's so many other companies as well. So and that also kind of opens up an understanding of what is happening globally in women's health space. So I think we collectively, that's how we combine founders and like really understanding of that. If you have active user, how can you like probably raise funding? Or some of the companies we work with, we help them raise series A funding, just showing India as a market. They never came to India. So
Mm.
people just don't understand, right? So I think overall is that
Mm.
our idea is that India is growing, it's a massive economy, and how can we also kind of focus on the women's health tech space, which is super important. Because if women are not healthy, I mean, families are not healthy, communities are not healthy. So we can't just afford to ignore that, and also equally invest in the space.
Yeah, because that
So
is
for you,
amazing.
Kath, I mean, you've seen a lot of brain drain from India as you were talking about going to America, and you made a conscious decision not to continue living in America and building a company there. So, I mean, you'll see a lot of CEOs and founders of companies that have originated from India, and they're doing incredibly well. But you've
Right.
made a decision to obviously, because it is such an important thing that you're doing, and it's only going to exist in India. You can't. I mean, femtech in the States is what it is. I mean, it's already well known, so you can see why you've brought it back to India. But the question for you is, with all the cultural pushback, what has been your biggest barrier to, we talked about the education piece, and it's about teaching people about fintech, but apart from maybe culturally, what other issues have you really come up against that you found difficult to overcome?
In terms of women's health space or overall business
Mm.
space?
Women's health specifically.
Yeah. So I would say, like, of course, one is of course taboo, because it's culturally very sensitive. You can't really discuss about anything openly with families, to be honest. I think most of the decisions are made by head of the family, which is of course mostly like men are head of the family. So
Mm.
they basically decide that if I mean, now the things have changed because so many women are working women. So they get health insurance, or coverage via their like company B2B plans and all that, right? But
Mm.
for homemakers, that they still are dependent on their husband. So if they have to do something, of course the husband opinion does matter, and she has to take permission from him to decide, like if she wants to do something for health. So I think that really needs to change. And that's why I say that, for me, the women's health always been financial freedom to decide of, even like when I'm in normal freedom as well, that you can take your own decisions as well. And third is of course that what you want to do, because it's not like everyone have to have children. Some women just don't want to have children, right? So I think the cultural perspective is really really different. India is again very big country. I would say 28 countries, it's not states. Every state works in very very different way.
Mm.
I'm from North India. My culture is really different. I live in Bangalore, South India, which is completely different. So, it's just like how people perspective also. So, if we look at south side of India, people are more educated. So, when people like if families are educated, the husband is educated, wife is educated. Of course, they want to take care of and make better decision for health and financial freedom and all of that because it's top priority. When you are north side of India, the education is less compared to south. So mostly like men are head of the family. Women, even if they are like educated, some of them just get married and decide not to do anything. So it's family to family, to be honest, like very different narrative. And I would say like India, as I said, culturally is like we are very very strong culturally. So even for example, some of the states in India, they celebrate when women menstruate. It's kind of crazy. And some of the states, women are not even allowed to go to kitchen or sleep on bed because of culture narrative. So it's just like we are same. People think India is one country, but it's actually, I had intern who was working with me, and she told me that in her house they are not allowed to sleep on bed. So her mom and her still sleep on the floor when they're menstruating. And I told her, when you go back now, you talk to your grandmother and tell her you're not going to sleep on floor, you're going to sleep on bed, because they still live in that narrative. And I'm saying they
Mm.
live in Bangalore. Bangalore is tier one city. She comes from very good educated families. So there are some of the families are very very culturally strong. So there are, and some families are very valued and traditionally, like they follow the same thing. So I think it's also little difficult to break that pattern until unless you want to come and educate your parents, because I'm always like they are different generation, and I keep educating my parents, and not everyone's parents listen, right? So some things my dad has a different opinion, like I make him change that opinion. Now I'm just like, no, things are different now, right? But my mother, she still lives in different cultural perspective, that no matter how hard I try, she will still believe in that, right? So
Mm.
um and I think like more and more people are educated. Of course, access to technology information has done a great job that people can actually get so many resources. So I think that narrative is changing. And I also like overall I feel that in women's health, for example, like we didn't had a dating apps before. Now we also have a Bumble in India. So I mean, when I was growing up, when I was little, I've not seen my cousins, going on dating apps and going on dates with different men, right? It's not our culture, but now women do that. So, that's so much change has happened in India over the year, that women have a more freedom and power, which is also accepted in society now, that, you are not judged by your choices because women are actually working. There's so many female entrepreneurs in India now. India, we also have some of the biggest companies, and India has given so many unicorn to the world. Like you were talking about
Mm.
Silicon Valley, that all the tech companies are led by Indian people only, right? So I think but
Yeah.
we are very very culturally, like a strong people, that which comes into so many elements. And as I said, women's health is, of course, I feel the narrative is changing little, but because these things were not discussed before. No one was talking about menopause 5 years back, and now it's all of a sudden hot topic for everyone, right? Gender equity was not even a thing before, and now we are just seeing, yeah, there's so many gaps we need to fill in, right? So I think it's just that these things are built on awareness, and the kind of work is doing some of the biggest organizations to fill this gap, and NGOs and companies, and there's so many initiatives. We definitely see that changing, but I think overall I've seen big drastic change. India has become so much better, has evolved. But we will always be culturally, I think for me also, like I still have so many culture values that no matter what happens, like I won't be able to break that, because we, no matter what we do, we go back to our roots, and we celebrate that, right? So and that's what we're trying to change as a narrative, that even women's health companies, India doing great work in terms of education, educating people, right? I worked with so many IVF clinics, and the embryologist there told me that I get so many fathers coming with their young daughters to freeze their eggs. And this is also great because see, they understand that, she probably wants to focus on her career, so she needs to preserve her fertility. I remember having discussion with my parents, I wanted to freeze my eggs, so they had no objection. So I think again that narrative is like changed a lot, like parents has evolved. And plus there are like small towns as well where we still see that, of course, people are different, very culturally rooted to their values and all that. I think which is pretty much everywhere. Like I've spoken to women in Eastern Europe and they tell me stories, and I would never believe something like that could happen in Europe. And then I would just like more and more I talk to more women, I feel yes, because these are like all women's related issues in terms of, they mostly talk about their pregnancies challenges, because after marriage there's a definitely thing that start your family planning, right? And it's a number one priority for every single couple. Some people don't want to do it, some people go through bad experiences and all of that, right? So it's also exhausting mentally, physically, and for families also, right? So I think that's like, that is what women's health is trying to change, that hey, you don't have to suffer alone, there is a support for you, there's a non-judgmental care for you. Not just women only but their partner as well, because men are also equally, part of the entire process of when you are like a couple, or it's a team play, right? And I think I also like, my mom has gone through menopause and she didn't know what to do, I helped her. So I think there's a lot of like, things are evolving. So I would always say that education is still the biggest gap, no matter how much
Mm.
technology we have, how we
Mm.
can educate more and people about their health. And when you do this educational workshops or sessions, or we watch something, we definitely feel inspired, right? When we see someone talking about inspiration video, it immediately gives you that kick that, oh, I'm feeling motivated. And I'm always like, how can we educate people in the same way about health that they can feel, yes, I'm not one who's suffering alone, this is like everyone have this problem, and equally they can seek that help. So I think that part is really global, but like again very culturally driven, every country wise. Like even Latin America, there are so many founders I know, they tell me their stories, and then and all of a sudden when I listen to these stories, I'm like, yeah, we all women are actually same, problems are same, but there are cultural
Mm.
differences, right? So it, that narrative is little sensitive. That's why it's a very empathy and care driven space, that how can you build that with so much of care, understanding, culture understandings for sure. Like when you coming from global markets, or you just can't sell everything what you're selling in US and bring that to India without understanding what Indian women want and what is the message you're trying to give, right? So those things are super important, that um, basically women need care for women's health, right?
Mm. Yeah, no, 100%. I like that a lot. And I just wanted to ask Nav, what do you feel about the flip side of perceived Western progress? Because if you look at the recent sort of Maha report in America, we know in the West, and we've seen that probably health is decreasing in terms of like technological advancement, more understanding, more knowledge, but obesity's up, divorce rates are at 50%, child obesity, child cancer is rising in the West, consumerism, mental health problems, depression, anxiety. So in one side it feels like there's progress, maybe from sleeping on the floor and having mystic views around what periods are, but then we've got the other side in the West where we're sort of progressing and regressing at the same time. How do you feel about that, and what could India learn about that in terms of progress? Because like you said, with dating apps, I would say that girls now are becoming hypersexualized in the West, and the actual family unit is completely deteriorating in the West. People are growing up with no fathers. Women are sleeping with lots of different guys. Yes, it's freedom, but freedom at the cost of their actual soul. And, those cultural things of having a partner, love, respecting sexual encounters has been sort of dissipated away. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, see, technology has done so much good to us, but of course, there's the other side as well, as you rightly mentioned. it's again that how do we use technology for good? It's up to us, right? So some people going to misuse it, and you have to be very responsible also that how do you consume that, right? I definitely feel that, of course, I think, with all these changes, of course, India has also adapted some of the Western culture as well, in terms of like freedom, or freedom to go on date whoever they want to go on date. But yes, there are other side of the things as well, that hey, but you're actually going out on a date, but you can't actually talk about sexual health part. Like, I've done, when we started, we've done survey on women asking about STI tests, and literally, like, none of these girls knew what STI test is, and they don't know. So I think there are so many problems also, that actively, of course, other side of the things, that um, how can we break that stigma and make these conversations open, and people who are not aware, they can actively take care of their health. I think US, of course, has like, it's massive in terms of women's health. If we look at funding and overall, there are so many organizations also, like, who have been putting a lot of money on research and all that. Some of the money has been stopped now, so women's health is like, it's not at really good stage currently at the moment. So overall, if I look at it, of course, the main focus is still towards, I would say, fertility, because that's where most of the private equity funding has come into Indian market also. So I think, I don't have actually proper answer for this, like what can be done, to be honest, because in my point
Yeah.
of view, like, it's like your responsibility of, how do you want to use technology, what you want to do to it, and how can you make the most out of it, right? So you can't really teach someone. It's say we also have Instagram, and people are actually doom scrolling, so you can even scroll all day and not do anything, or you can just be productive about it and divide your time, right? So I think this comes with every person, responsibility as a human. So I don't have comments on like how someone's been using, um, and also like on the US part, of course, some things I feel really sad about as well, looking at, um, technology has a good, but like also the overall narrative is changing on people, and some things are quite shocking as well when we come across. And that I said already, that India also, the culturally we are adapting so much of Western culture, and truly not forgetting our values. Like, because Gen Z's generation is like so out there, like, we work with a lot of Gen Z's, and it's so difficult to work with them because we have to keep up the way they want things, right? So with our generation, is wasn't like we were not taught where to say no. We were like yes to say yes everything, because you need to get the work done, and they know where to draw a line and say draw the boundaries, right? So I think, is just like, I would say, like, use technology for good, use with ethics, because, and it should also be built on ethics, that build inclusive for everyone. And I think the misuse part is just completely like, if someone's doing drug, how do you stop them? Like, I just don't have answer for that, because it's just their
Mm.
personal,
Do you
choice.
think do you think
Yeah,
that, Nav, though, in terms of it's the drugs, the tech companies are like the drug dealers. They give people the drug, they become addicted to sell them more. So that's what Silicon Valley pretty much, if you look at some of the documentaries on Facebook, they've got the
yeah,
world's best psychologists convincing how to keep people addicted to their phone for advertising revenue. So you could have millions, hundreds of millions of young kids from India becoming addicted, this change in their actual brain chemistry. So they're not actually in control. So in terms of it being a personal feeling of I shouldn't be scrolling this, it becomes a little bit of a subconscious, out of control feeling, because your dopamine in your brain is being kicked off constantly, and you're constantly being advertised to, because that's the model of capitalism. And then you end up with a lot of depressed kids, people that are completely, 70% of people in America are overweight or obese. There's
right.
lots of great health tech out there, but actual people's health is really bad. So that's what I'm thinking. Is India aware of those dangers going forwards? Because it is really bad in the West.
No, I think I would definitely say yes, because technology is quite addictive, to be honest. There's so much to do now, right? Like, there's a WhatsApp, like so many kids are actually addicted to WhatsApp and all that. So I think there are some policies, like, some of the countries have also banned that kids not to have access to social media, like under 16 and all that. So I think
China,
it's
China done it? Have
I
they?
think
Have they
I think
been
New
more
Zealand,
strict
New
with it?
Zealand or Australia. Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah, which is
yeah,
sensible when
Australia
if
have,
you've got a
haven't they?
massive population like that,
yeah.
it's huge.
But it's a bit Pandora's box, isn't it? That, once you've opened the lid, you can't close it again. So if the exposure's there, then the need or the want is going to be there as well. So, you're kind of almost trying to counter what John was saying, that these things now exist in the world. Now we're trying to put things back in to enable people to be able to exist or to live their lives. And I think probably even more than any other country on the planet, India has such ancient roots
Yeah,
in that community, in the rituals, and culturally so tied to the things that it holds dear with its existence. You've come through so much adversity and you've survived over millennia because of those fundamentals. And now everything's being questioned, everything's being disrupted and dismantled. And I can see how, as a community, that you're going to really be pushing back against technology generally because of that fact that, we've now lost the ability to think for ourselves. We've now lost, to just meditate in that sort of very fundamental way, that now we're being bombarded 24/7 by people seeking to get our attention. And all that ancient wisdom is potentially being lost because we've now got a new narrative that's trying to
yeah,
force its way into our consciousness. So,
yeah.
I
We're
mean,
now
I'm a
trying
little
to go
bit,
back. We're trying to go back to old Indian ways. We've like gone through the tech. Our health's got really bad, and now we're
yeah,
going
and
back
we're
to
looking to you guys,
meditation and try
Yeah.
to
to be the
improve our health.
panacea. So it's really fascinating that you're now sort of morphing into this thing that we've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And we're sort of almost kind of flipping the narrative, that we look to Indian culture to be able to be more self-aware and to
Right.
exist
Mm.
in this environment of, stress and
It's hard, isn't it,
bombardment.
James?
It's,
It's
yeah.
super hard. It is super hard because like I completely agree. I also feel like technology has also created so much of jobs. Like people were jobless, and there's so many new startups has come up in terms
Mm.
of commerce space, that we have some of the biggest companies. They've created so many jobs for people. Uber has created so many jobs in India. So I also feel that employment rate has increased. People are actually making money. They're living like they have a purpose to do something, right? Again, I will go back to, yes, technology is good, used for good. Addiction can be
Mm.
anything. And I think for the children, it's a parent's responsibility that they are actively involved, that how much access they want to give them to screen, because TikTok is banned in India. We don't have that, but Instagram is so addictive. Like I
Yeah,
see children making reels, and just like I'm like, don't they go to school? Like, there's the other part also. And yeah, some parents are making them do that as well. It's a normal thing, right? So I think, again, like, what are you doing with technology? It's like depends on the person. Plus also the education part, that how you can make the most out of it. I know, like, it's my dream if I can go off my screen for like 1 week, because I can't. I'm like, my work is dependent on, my life is dependent on it, right? So
yeah,
as you
Mm.
said, we are like literally dependent on these things, that nothing moves. And of course you find another part also, like India has done so much in yoga, meditation part, and all of that, and which is adapted globally by a lot of people, right? So how do you also, like, I'm someone, I can't meditate, so you figure out your way that whatever brings you peace. Like, I'll put something on Spotify which gives me meditation, or I listen to something which I can't read. So you know what I mean, like I go to temple and find my peace, because as I said, like, we're also very religious people as well. So I know that, where I can just reset myself. And I think some people can find with technology, some people can find in beats, some people can do meditation. Whatever brings you, do that, because mental health is super important. That we have so much pressure that we're building newsletter, now it's podcast, then your social media, then founders are becoming creators now, and my team
Yeah.
has been pushing me as well. I'm like, how do we manage, we running full-time businesses, then founder becomes creator, you making content. I mean, do we ever like have time to reset? No, because you can just keep on adding things, right? But I also feel that with technology you learn and evolve so much, right? So um I will always use technology for good. I think technology has done so much good.
Hmm.
Just figure out your ways. Whatever is happening in women's health it's technology for good only. It's creating better access for people who probably don't have reach, and everyone can access that information, right? Which maybe like someone who's sitting in, I live in Bangalore. This is tier one city. Someone sitting in small village in tier four also, same girl have a same access to same information what I have. I actually made a post on my LinkedIn also, was like, if someone's at Stanford, they have access to same knowledge. People on the phone have the same knowledge, because we are living in chat GDP world. Of course, our thinking has become short because we want shortcut. Like, yeah, chat GDP is my best friend. I talk to her every single day. I put every single thing, you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
find my answers, and it's just like, yeah, I have companion, you know what I mean? Which I feel, yeah, I can ask any question. Or if I go to some human being, yeah, I'm just like fear of having judgmental, or I'm just like, yeah, I have certain boundaries with people. I can't discuss anything. So
Hmm.
again, find the best ways of how you can make the most out of technology. And I keep educating myself, to be honest. Like, I am someone, I didn't know how to make reports, and I've actually, used AI tools to, always exploring things. Like, I work with my team, editor team, and I also tell them, hey, this is what we. So these are like different things we keep educating and learning, and I find fun about that, because yeah, we are actually using for our business. I'm not. These are tools built to make our life easier. Um, Also for companies who probably can't hire so many people, so they can cut down on the cost and say, hey, you know
Hmm.
what, like one person can do the job and it makes it easier. Like, why not? But of course there's another side as well, that I wouldn't say that, yeah, I've seen the documentaries you are referring to, and I think is again goes back to your, every single person, human, has a responsibility how to use it ethically. And I think when you're using technology, also educate yourself about ethics as well. Read about things, and which I keep on doing that as well, that hey, like, don't just simply sign up for things, like go through terms and conditions, like, what the company stands for and all of that. When you
Nobody
actually,
reads the terms and conditions.
nobody reads
Nobody
it,
does
right?
it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it's a
it
Yeah.
just
difficult one, isn't
it's
it?
They're just like,
it's
oh,
so,
tick that box. It'll be
we
fine.
we do that, right? Yeah. So and actually UNESCO has launched world's first women in ethical AI chapter, and I was part of the launch, and they had the entire booklet, and I was actually going that I've learned so much from this, that so many things, like, yeah, we've been using technology, but I don't even know what are the ethical practices in technology, because I'm not from tech background. But yes, I'm consuming so much. It's my responsibility to educate myself about certain things which I don't know. So I think it's again that, like, keep learning. And if I know this, I will tell my 10 friends who probably don't know this, right? So spread the knowledge and awareness. In that way
Yeah.
people can use responsibly, like they just don't abuse it or get addicted.
Does it feel
Yeah.
like you're unique in that respect, Nav, or can you see a lot of people, following that kind of behavior? Because I don't know, the couple of conversations that we've had, that I'm trying not to look at you as being this kind of unicorn, this unique individual that leaves home at 17 and starts a business at 19, has parents that are very, open and allowing them to be able to lead these sort of lives, and that you don't attach emotionally to outcomes, to things. Do you see yourself as very different to your peer group, or are you all quite sort of similar in that respect?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I also kind of feel sometimes weird. I never had best friends in my life, and I'm not someone who makes best friends, to be honest, since my
Mm,
school also. Like, I have siblings, my younger sister. um, Everyone around has a best friend, so I think I'm also kind of like, I've had independence at very young age, and I kind of build my life that way. So I move on to things, I don't stick around. I also don't like to hang out with people who are less than me. I like to be with people who are equally, or I can learn something from someone. So I have been very, very mindful about these things in my life. Plus, I worked with all men in my life in my first like family business, and
mm,
they were like mostly like my father's age or older than my dad. And there's so many things I learned from them while sitting or just observing. When I just didn't even know anything, I would just sit and observe people, right? So I think there are a lot of understanding and maturity came from those things. Of course, that I was very clear, yeah, how to be. You feel scared when you're meeting someone who's such a senior person, and you're trying to go and negotiate. When my first meeting for excise commissioner office, and he told me, I don't want to talk to you, send someone senior from your team. I'm like, I'm the senior, you have to talk to
this is
me.
this is it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he was just like, because I was like, of course, I'm talking about 5-6 years back, and I was much younger than the way I look now. I ate so much sitting in front of the screen, but I was just like, no. And then I think I also had to change my entire attire, that how do I show up professionally, some of the front people, because these things I just didn't know that. So like, I'm
Mm,
just showing up my sneaker and jeans, and no one's just gonna take me seriously. And then I'm like, yeah, when I'm meeting this some person who's like, has some power to move things, or he's some officer, I need to show up like him. So I think it's also really important to adapt yourself in the way, the kind of people you're dealing with in a business. And that I also learned when I was talking to people in Europe. I kind of talk like them, like, hey, I'm one of you. So when I talk to people in India, I'm just like, yeah, one of you. So I think that's also like, you don't have to show up as, yeah, I'm unique, I'm doing something. Like, just show people like, everybody wants to feel comfortable, and that you need to show through your conversations and relationship building, that people can see they can trust you. And I think those are the things. Like, of course, I had really strict. I had very difficulty still making friends, to be honest. I have friends through business whom I do business with. I have so many girlfriends now all around the world. I think I can crash at anyone's house wherever I go, because we built such a business relationship, and we don't have personal relationship, because we do talk our business things. So they'll drop me voice note, because people can trust me, and then I would, we kind of share what's happening. Some investor is ghosting, or someone's doing something, they're like, hey, I just don't know. So I think, like, I'm very girls that way, but I've never someone that who could probably be like comfortable sharing my personal life or take anyone's advice. That I'm also I've never taken anyone's advice, because I've always like to just make my own decision. I don't know, my dad called me really stubborn. It's a good thing,
Yeah,
bad thing.
sounds like my daughter as well, to be honest.
oh God,
So
yeah,
Nav,
and
in
mine.
terms of when it comes to the products and the services that people are coming into India to try and start up, are they trying to serve the middle class, which is probably growing rapidly? And if so, I sort of learned beforehand there's 400 million people plus in poverty with low education. What are people, are you thinking more altruistically, or are you thinking more in terms of capitalistically, in terms of, feed the middle class, which is obviously hundreds of millions probably moving into that area? What's going to happen to the rest of the 500 million people who can't afford the things that people are selling, who probably really need it?
No, that's a really good question. So I think, especially when I talk about women's health space, I'm always like, how can we build access for everyone, not just
Yeah.
like giving access, which means is someone who's living in small town or big town. And that's what I call access, like building, the space for every single human. Of course, there's a language barrier also comes in, which, as I already said, India is, 28 countries. I would say again,
Mm.
it's not states. Every state has a different language. So, um, we are the second largest English speaking country in the world, so we don't work like China. And middle class is some of the growing population in India. We are also the youngest nation in the world, that way we have so much of young workforce. This not just workforce, but these are the people who actually want to consume and spend. They're like consumers, right? For the
Hmm.
world, basically, I would say. And these are like Gen Z and millennials, which is, your next big population in India. um, when we look at the ground level, of course, I think so much can have happened now in terms of technology wise. Of course, I bring in technology here, that giving awareness or access, building those models from English to local language models, so people can understand and access, make it easier for them. um, Mostly, I look at companies in women's health space now. Their main focus is tier one, two cities, of course, because that's where they see, it's easier because consumers are educated, they have money to spend. So, really going at grassroots level, because infrastructure is still not there yet, right? It takes time, and no founder just want to live in some village and build something for larger population, right? So I think that's where, when I see some of the initiatives which is done by Government of India, Serum Institute has signed up a vaccine contract, HPV vaccine contract with Government of India, which will go to grassroots level to giving vaccine free for uh,
Mm.
low income, like the small villages, and plus also giving this access to in tier one cities at reasonable cost, that everyone can afford it, right? So there are bigger organizations who are doing this such a grassroots level work because they have money, they have access. Then comes to startups, they are actually starting from tier one cities. But of course, our government is also equally, open to collaboration models, that if you go to government and say, I want to bring that to as a national health program or women's health program and all that. So of course, the government infrastructure is so big, which is, they understand the local language, they understand the narrative. They have so many people who work at grassroots level. They know how to, communicate with those people, right? So I think those things are again kind of building blocks for sure. I would definitely see that happening in next 5-10 years. As a company, I always say that it's never, most rewarding thing I have done. I've been on so many panels, I've been invited by some of the biggest conferences. uh, I felt good because I was representing my country. I was talking about the topic and market which nobody has discussed before. The most rewarding part I've done was going to very small village, and in North India, where I'm from, Punjab. And there was one university there, and these are all data analytics students. And this university has this was educational awareness session with 300 girls, and we did this on period tracking, to educating them how to use technology, how to use actually period tracking app, which they didn't know. Even their data analytics students, they're working in tech, but they had no idea they could actually track their periods. And when I actually got down from the, my talk, and I was talking to their teachers, and these all girls gathered around me and started talking their health problems to me. So
Mm.
when I came back to my office, and like, came back to Bangalore, I didn't go to office for 2 days because I really isolated myself, because I couldn't cope up with that experience of that we are actually sitting in the spaces, we are building this, we are talking this, but their problems are so big, like there is so much work needs to happen. And
Hmm.
as a company, of course, I do want to fill these gaps. I'm not saying like right now this is our goal in terms of, if we can, not big things, even if we, with that talk, I have changed 100 girls life,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy because we made some small change. And I think when we can bring in more partnerships and collaboration models to really do that, the gender gap and the tech gap going, like literally going to small colleges, or educating girls, because they are English speaking. I said we are the second largest English speaking country in the world, so we do want to do that, of course. That's where I look at real impact. Honestly, I feel in bigger cities, of course, people have access, they understand very well. I have thousands of options. Whatever I want, I can get in 10 minutes because of technology, the quick commerce access and all that. But when we look at villages, they have very less resources, they have very less access. So that's where we need to do more work, that like really do going at grassroots level, and giving education, empowerment, and also like really changing lives, and where their parents are not so educated, so the girls are like, we just don't know whom to talk to because my mother doesn't understand anything. And that was like really, and it was just kind of reflection for me that yes, I had such a privileged life of whatever I wanted, but there are people who actually have real problems which we just don't know, right? We don't even think about that. So, and I
Yeah.
think that's where I look at, of course, as a company doing it. There's so many companies, they have CRS initiatives in India as well, even menstrual health space, mental health, and all that. They do this small camps. This company called Nirmaya Health. They have a breast screening device in India, so they also do these camps in rural India, where they actually give free breast screening for young girls and even their mothers, so educating about them. So I think these things were not happening before. I don't see any pharma companies have doing that, to be honest, and
Yeah.
this change is coming through the ecosystem and the startup. And I would say yes, because they're able to do it because VC ecosystem is equally involved as well. So um, I feel very excited about all these progress, even if it's done small. At least it started to happen, that, and I'm sure in coming years will have a more impact.
Yeah. And Nav, what do you feel about the impact of AI? Because a lot of the people I know in London working are normally working in IT, and they're normally the people who are very switched on and know about the latest tech. Is India going to be the future of AI? Do you feel this is going to be quite transformational, and you could sort of leap ahead of other nations just because your sheer size and numbers?
Um, I definitely see that AI's future for sure. India's still like adapting tech overall. When I look at
Mm.
health tech, in SaaS or fintech and all these models, of course, AI has a huge role to play even in education system as well, which will be evolving. Looking at our population
Yeah,
size, which could be a game changer, and I'm sure our government and ecosystem is focused on that. But it will take time, I'm saying, because like AI is like evolving so quickly, rapidly. There's so much, like, and it's like every day something new comes up, right? So
of course. Yeah,
how do you also like like educate people, like, hey, how to make the most out of it, right? So, and I think again, like, goes back to that, the ethics of it, like on what ethics are we building, how do we also educate people on those things, that hey, how can you make the most out of it. But 100% countries like India, where we have the largest population in the world, we also have largest health problems. And you know looking at the population size and all that, I'm sure the AI will be game changer, which is quickly evolving, but it's still adapting, which will take some time.
Hmm.
yeah. Okay, amazing. And if people are looking to work in India and grow a company, would you just recommend them, going through a company like yours, because you're obviously the facilitator, the middle person between understanding India and what people can bring in the West outside in terms of their capabilities?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Would you say to come to it's best to come to a company like yours to understand India and how the markets are working? If I wanted to have start a femtech company in India, you would say, how would I go about that? Would it be to facilitate through someone like you?
Yeah, 100%. So, in fact, in the company wise, that's exactly what we do. So, we give them market understanding of, first understanding their product market fit, if India is market for them or not. So, we typically work on phase wises, giving you overview of, yes, does that make sense for you to come to India or not? The second is, if somebody wants to work, I have actually hired a new team in London because we work with a lot of companies in London, and these are Imperial College students, and they want to come to India because they really want to take some hands-on experience in India. As I said, India is growing and evolving market, and it adds a lot of value when you understand different markets from apart from excuse me, apart from being in just one country.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that, it's a great opportunity, to be honest. Like, and I'm so glad when I was deciding 5 years back I want to be in US or India. I have no regret that I wanted to be in India. In fact, a lot of people told me, because what you're building, you need to be in Silicon Valley to build your relationship. And I was like, I need to understand the gaps in the Indian market first to go to Silicon Valley. And I think
Mm.
I have done that very actively, being in the market, not from sitting from US and saying that, hey, these are the gaps. Like, I've actually done the work here. So I understand the market very well. And maybe I can now go to Silicon Valley and do something. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
always an opportunity to do that. So I think um, it's just that. It's really important that who are you building for and what. And of course, my experience and my knowledge is deeply rooted into the Indian market from my first company to this now. But I love bringing the global perspective, and that's why, with the global founders, to really help them understand what India has to offer. Because everyone thinks that in London, I was in London last year for 2 months, and I met almost 50 founders. I was meeting every day, founder, VC, and everyone see active interest in India. And I would say 98% of companies in London want to go to US, because that's their
Mm.
vision is. But they don't
Yeah.
have capital, because US, of course, you need to invest more capital. And
Yeah.
that's where they see, oh, we are launched in India, we launched in UK, next step is go to US market. And that's actually what their dream is, because they want to go to. And we are also like, hey, US is one thing, but maybe India could be product market fit for you as well, as of now. And then maybe you don't need to invest the same capital, you can actually explore, right? And I think there's a lot of Indian population already in the UK as well. So it's just, again, like a very different narrative, to be honest. I'm like, you can never convince anyone to come to India. You can't. It's just the company, they know if they have active user base, they will say, yes, we want to. I cannot convince you, hey, India is market for you, please come. You know what I mean? Like, it has
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
Of
be,
course.
you have active user base, you already seeing some growth, and you see, yeah, this could be my potential market. And that's how we do target. So we never convincing anyone, hey, you need to come here. I'm just like, you need to explore and understand that. And that's exactly what we do. Like, I'm currently working with 6 UK based companies, and where they see India is a huge market for them. And their investors also see that. So I think, it's like understanding of what single person want for their company and the growth overall.
Yes, an
Yeah.
education side, would you say, James? Because I think in the West, we're not very educated on India at all. And even looking at YouTube, one of the biggest YouTube channels, you'll probably know what it is an Indian music channel. And
T series.
yeah, T series. People, if you say that name to most people in the West, they have no idea
I have
what that
no
is.
idea.
But
No idea. But
it's
like you said,
huge.
it's you
Yeah.
immediately think of, if you're thinking of a huge market for growth, you think of the States. You think, well, I've got to get,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I've got to get FDA approval. I'm taking this product to the States, and that's
Well,
it. But
you'd definitely
it's
think of
changing the
business.
narrative.
Yeah. You'd
Yeah, it's
think of a
changing the
business maybe
narrative.
in the fashion side, wouldn't you, James? I guess if you was, had a clothing brand and you wanted manufacturers, you would think of
Yeah.
maybe
Think
India as a
India.
place to go to facilitate it.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't be thinking about selling it to an Indian market, which is probably
yeah.
there's a big change in terms of having a business to sell tech to, an Indian growing middle
I mean,
class
I've been
market.
throughout, and just prior to COVID and during COVID, we had a business where we were creating an app that would enable you to be exercising with a suit that you could use remotely. So I could be in the UK and train somebody in the States, in India. I mean, we had an Indian app developer working with us and just did incredible work, and really cost effectively, that we wouldn't have been able to do if we hadn't have used this particular guy. So,
Right.
I know that the talent is there 100%. And it would be an interesting market to look at for fitness.
No, I mean, fitness market is really growing in India, to be honest. Like a lot of people, before that, people just want to look good. Now everyone wants to feel healthy and active. And that also has a lot to do with your day-to-day productivity, right? So,
Yeah,
people are investing a lot in health, fitness, and wellness. It is one of the growing markets, of course, and we have a lot of Western concept coming to India as well, because where people are investing money equally there, right? So, I think like also that India like adapts things very quickly in terms of there's also influence from West, that if I like something in UK or US and comes to India, people have that, oh, it's like global, that narrative is
yeah.
also there, right?
Mm.
Um,
Is, is,
and I
is
think
gym culture big there now? Like gyms and workout and that type of stuff? Because obviously that's
it's
huge
getting
in the
it's
West. Is it
getting
quite big?
It's getting there, isn't it? And that's probably
yeah.
come out of Bollywood, isn't it? I guess that sort of, the actors are looking better. They're clearly going to the gym, and that then filters down through, doesn't it?
So Bollywood overall has a lot of influence in India, to be honest,
Mm.
because people are very driven by Bollywood music or movies or culture and that imagination world. For sure, I would say, um, and fitness is something I would say like it has evolved a lot. To be honest, we never used to have a lot of marathons before. Like now, I see every city has marathon. I'm
Mm.
in Bangalore. Like there are like 10 running clubs here. Like every Sunday I can go to different club, like there are people in a group of people, they go for running. The beautiful parks in Bangalore, so there's so many like gyms. We have Pilates. We have the bear concept from New York, the
Mm.
physics 57, that is also in
Okay, yeah.
India. Something like berries we have here, which I do
Paris boot
berries.
camp. Yeah.
Barry's
Yeah.
boot camp.
What's the obesity rate in India? Is the
It's
obesity
a lot.
high or is it quite low because of the poverty? Does that sort of balance it out?
I would say it's in, I don't have exact number, but it's definitely increasing in younger population for sure. A lot of people are obese.
Mm.
Even women, or I won't say everyone have active lifestyle in India, because our diet is also quite heavy, and people just
Carbs,
like
yeah.
carbs, like a lot of carbs, less protein, so very less physical movement for sure. So
Yeah.
um, it's again very personal, but I can definitely see that a lot of people are actually investing in health and wellness, even women now. Like I've been lifting weights all my life, and I think that just makes me feel better. It's not about just like, and I had a different narrative when I started and where I am now. Now I just want to work out, because I know it just like I can stay clean. When you work out, you like your diet is clean all day, you feel good about yourself, you given that 1 hour for yourself, right? So it's just that finding that balance, and it's on my calendar. Like literally I know that when I don't work out, how I feel about myself really bad. I feel
Yeah.
something is missing, right? So um
Yeah.
and the weightlifting and all of that, as I said, like of course, that's just that culture. I see a lot of women getting into weightlifting now. Like everybody wants to, because it has so many good benefits in hormonal health and
Benefits.
overall, right? So that was not there before. So
The
it's
culture's improving. Yeah, because in the West, people, they say they're going to do it, but they do it for 5 minutes. So it never lasts really for most people. in terms of like the people that go to gyms. But what's going to be big is these GLP-1s. I don't know if you've seen the injections for stopping you feeling hungry. So I don't know if that's going to come to India on a
No, we already
massive.
have. We
It's
have
already
a
there.
Monzaro launched in India, so
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and which has, of course, I think the weight loss drug, of course, is positioned in the market in very different way because of the celebrity influence and all of that, right? Because
Mm,
they're dropping weight so quick and all that. So I think this definitely has a huge role to play because, as I said, most of the Indian women are like heavy, and weight depends on a lot of women's health conditions. So if
yeah.
someone is not able to lose weight, and I think these drugs can really help those people who are trying to conceive or trying to cope through PCOS or other hormonal and health conditions, right? I think, of course, weight also has overall effect on your mental health and how you feel about yourself, right? So
Mm.
again, like, how do you use that responsibly, like not just like taking drugs but also actively working out and doing other activities also. If you're obese, I would say, yeah, use it with your doctor's help, there's nothing wrong in it, right? But make sure you have an active lifestyle of that, however you do it. There are many, I've actually written about this in my newsletter because that really excites me also, because like, yeah, there are solution building now for people who really thought they don't have life, you know what I mean, like it's just
Yeah.
um, like they just can't, right? When you're like so obese, how do you even move? Like you really lose the motivation. So if you drop, like, let's say some pounds and you start to feel, yeah, maybe now I can start lifting weight, just gives you that inspiration, right? So overall this will have a better health outcome if I look at it. um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's India is a huge population, and obese rates are, of course, increasing. Diabetes is we are diabetes capital of the world, which
Really?
every yeah
What?
every
Yeah.
Why
month.
is that, Nav? Is it because of because in the West we've obviously got a crisis in the quality of food. We're eating crazy amounts of processed food, high sugar, high fat,
Right.
high chemical food in the West. Like anywhere McDonald's turns up, people's health just completely disappears.
Deteriorates.
So what
Mm.
is it in terms of the Indian culture? Is it because of your eating, you would have been doing very laborious work in the past, eating very calorific foods, which you would have burnt off, and now people are not exercising, or is it the quality of food's gone down?
I think we never used to have like a lot of processed food. Our diet is anyways very heavy. Like it's
Rice.
we do have, like, of course, McDonald's, Domino's, all these Western food chains are here everywhere. To be honest, like every single corner, even you can
Oh, you've
find it,
caught the
like.
disease already.
Yeah.
The Western
We're sorry about
disease.
that.
Ah,
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think also, like, as I said, Indian, we don't have a very active lifestyle, to be honest. When I look at like people who are like my parents and all that, so they typically, like, mothers, they will just like homemakers or make food and take care of family, and they don't actively take care of themselves. So that's why women become fat.
mm,
Even like in the men as well, like diabetes rate, it's like, as I said, we're diabetes capital of the world. That my dad has diabetes. I don't, like, in my entire family, my all uncles, my father, my father's age, everyone has diabetes.
yeah.
It's
Mm.
also because of lifestyle factors. My dad has a very, very active lifestyle all his life, but he still got it. It's a stress also. There's so many other factors overall, right? So I think
Yeah.
a diet is something that mean that we don't actively move so much. As I said, we don't have an active like lifestyle, but also like other factors in terms of stress and other things like diabetes. Not, I'm not a health expert to talk about why this happens, but I'm just looking at like overall narrative, what I see, that what could be the consequences even for cancer also, because it's all related to our, everything comes back to our food and our exercise, how do we operate day to day. So physical activity is super important because, of course, it makes you feel good, even it's walk or it's gym or whatever you like to do it, right?
Yeah. So I was a
Yeah.
personal trainer in London. I don't know if you, James, you've had Indian clients, but I have a lot of Indian clients and they struggle culturally because when I asked them, what are you eating? It was like, oh my God, we're going to have to, unless you're going
I
to be
used to
doing.
work. I used to work on on a GP referral scheme. And I didn't go personally, but there were two girls that I was working with, and they would go into the Indian community to try to encourage them to become more active. And they would just come back with the most incredible plates of food that they'd been given, because that was the way that they showed love, and it was just amazing. But they said, well, did they do anything active? It's like, no, we just sort of stood around and chatted, but they just gave us all this food. So it's, they know that food is at the heart of culture, and it doesn't represent sort of activity. And didn't matter how, they would give them hugs and smile and say, that's fine, we know you've come here to do us some good, but we'll send you away with some lovely food. And that was it. That was their interaction. They really struggled to get that message across about activity.
That could be a big problem, Nav, couldn't it, for India? I can see the more prosperous they get, the health side is going to be, it could be really bad. Because, like I said, the Indian clients I got in London were really struggling with weight, diabetes, that type of stuff. And if you don't get the culture right, if you just follow capitalist values like the West, then you'll just be fast tracking to a really bad health demographic. Plus, if Indian people copy the consumerist nature of the West, environmentally, we're basically going to destroy the world. So I'm hoping like young people like you, I don't know how, but somehow, take your real good core values of like real understanding of family dynamics, loyalty, working hard, diligence, but don't copy the West. Observe what we've done and actually try and forge a new direction, because the West is not working. Health-wise, it's not working. Money-wise, it looks good. But realistically, inequality is huge. The middle class in the West are struggling. People can't afford houses. Depression's high. Relationships are falling apart, and people's health's bad. So I'm hoping that India watch us, learn, and just don't copy and try and forge your own path, because otherwise it's not going to be good.
No, I think 100%. I mean, I will come back to the same thing. If we have a largest population in the world, we also have the highest diseases in the world, right? If we look at diabetes, cancer, and other parts, and of course, food has and lifestyle has a major role to play. And that's why I feel like healthcare landscape, which was not talking about preventive care before, it's educating people about it, right? Why preventive care is important. The only challenge with preventive care is that you don't get funding to scale that model, because people are used to the shortcuts of I'll go to hospital and take pills, or maybe get admitted and get something, but I just don't want to take care of my health, right? So also I would say that our history, actually yoga, ayurveda has so much role to play in health, right? Like people just so many people from West come to India for detox, right? I have so many friends from US, they come every year to do detox, and they go back feeling so good about it. So I think understanding that perspective, health is wealth, I would say, like for everyone. And also I see that we don't have so much of healthy options in terms of food. Like for example, if I go to airport and I will get McDonald's, I'll get this all Western chains, like I don't want to consume that. So if you're hungry, you just ended up getting I'll get fries or get burgers, right? So I think that I will also see, like if people can see more healthy options, they ended up like doing that. It's very difficult to carry your meals and taking your everything. It becomes quite challenging as well. So of course the economy and everything depends on it. That if we want to be the healthy nation and we want to be the third largest economy in the world, that of course we need to take care of that, how we operating overall in the system, and health plays a major role. Right. So I definitely see that, of course, and that's why health tech companies, women's health tech companies are doing a lot of education where people are getting aware, and that's why they actively adapting this lifestyle of why they need to exercise, why they need to do 10,000 steps, like why I need to track my, um, my food also. Like I know, like I don't consume Indian food every day, but I know that it's just quite heavy, and I'm not able to work because it just gives me brain fog because it's so heavy, like masalas
Yeah,
and curry.
fall
Like you
asleep.
can't eat. Yeah, you fall asleep. And most of the corporates in India, they have a employee, all the big companies in India, they have this what they get for lunch is basically like heavy Indian food, and I don't know how do they work after that. So
I know.
definitely,
So
like
everybody's asleep at 2 o'clock.
I
I
have
love
to.
I love Indian food as well. Do you, James? I absolutely
Oh,
love
but yeah, but
dal,
it's yeah,
curry. Oh
you're
god, it's
absolutely shattered
gorgeous.
afterwards. I need a
Yeah.
nap. I do.
Yeah, so it's just like you need to find your balance. To be honest, yeah, food has a lot to do with overall,
Yeah, you
and
got your
food
work
is,
cut out. Because I think, like you
yeah,
said, in the West, we've got all the information. We've never had more health professionals. We've got awareness coming out of our ears, and we still can't fix the problem. So I reckon it's a
yeah,
big cultural, shift that needs
Yeah,
to
we're
happen. You got to be
up against human
very
nature.
cautious and careful about what tech you allow in, what companies you allow in. Some things that make a lot of money can be very detrimental to a
Long
nation.
term.
America's finding out now because their
right,
kids are dying. So and the West is following suit. So I think you've probably got a bigger role than you probably think in terms of trying to figure that out as a huge nation. So I'll be
yeah.
fascinated, and to watch your progress, Nav, because you're obviously a very impressive person. But Nav, in terms of won't keep you too long. Where can people find you, Nav? Where's the best place to check out what you're doing?
I think my LinkedIn, everything is there. I'm very active
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn. I also have my podcast on YouTube, which we have actually signed our biggest collaboration. So we are emerging into something much bigger, which I can't wait to make announcements next week. So LinkedIn
Wow.
would be a better
Excellent,
place, and
amazing,
YouTube is where our podcast is. YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.
excellent.
Amazing.
That's fantastic. No, we'll pass you on and we'll put all the details below. But I just wanted to say, no, thank you very much for coming on. You're a
It's been
very impressive
fascinating.
lady, and I'm fascinated by India. I've never been. Maybe one day we'll go, James. To be honest, it would
Yeah,
be quite an adventure, wouldn't it?
we'll have an off site where
John
we
and
go
Okay,
James India.
go to
I will
India.
invite you because I'm putting something together in India to call a lot of global people. So I'll send you cross details.
Oh,
Okay,
You
amazing.
have to
We'll be
excellent.
come and
there.
see here. You will be so fascinated once you come here. You'll be like, wow. We
I
are actually
bet. Yeah.
yeah, we are actually when I was in London, I was feeling, oh my God, I like in India have access to everything so quick and we are spoiled by these options. And in London in 2 months, I was feeling so hard to cope up with things. I'm just like, yeah, it takes time. Like I can literally get my food delivery, my groceries in 10 minutes. Like it's so much.
Sufficient.
Yeah, even like you just name it. I want my lipstick, I want my tea, I want anything will come in 10 minutes. I don't even go for printing actually. If I want something print,
Really?
yeah, so
Wow.
I send them documented, print and send it back to us. So we are spoiled by options. Once you come here, you'll be like shocked that how the overall infrastructure has changed. Even for you guys are very passionate about health and fitness, so it'll
Yeah.
be great for you to explore as well. The market is definitely evolving. It's very huge.
Yeah.
Mumbai is much bigger than Bangalore, but of course, in Bangalore is basically tech city, so you will see a lot of founders and but again, like you will see a lot of clubs there where people believe in more of community driven approach, and Mumbai is like mix of everything.
Yeah, I'd love it to be honest, James. It'd be super
Yep.
exciting. But yeah,
We'll be
we'll
there.
pass your
We
details
will be
below,
there.
and we'll talk on the other side. Okay, Nav.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you
Bye,
very
guys.
much.
Bye.
Bye bye bye.